Navigating the hundreds of formulas in Excel can be overwhelming. That's why in today's video, we are going to focus on the most common ones. If you'd like to follow along, there is a link to the file in the description below. And if you would like to move ahead to some of the formulas, there are timestamps as well. Ready to take your Excel to the next level? Let's jump into it.
Okay, first up we have the SUM function. This is the most essential function that you're going to be needing in Excel. There are three ways to achieve this. The first one is the shortcut button up here. Press that, press enter, and you have that. Now, let's go to the other one, which is equals sum. Open the bracket, highlight the cells, close the bracket, press OK. And the last one is Alt plus equals enter. There you go. Now let's take a look at SUMIF and SUMIFS. What this does is have a criteria within the sum. So in the first option here, the SUMIF, it only allows you to have one criteria. And what we're going to do is, if the color is yellow, we want it to return the quantity sold. So we want to do the formula equals SUMIF, open the bracket. Now the range where we want to look for the criteria, so we highlight this, then we press a comma, and the criteria is we look for yellow. So as it's a text, we need to put it into closed brackets, quotation marks, sorry, and then we highlight the range where we want our quantity to come back to us. So if we press OK, you can see you have 10 and 5, which is 15, exactly what we wanted. Now let's take a look at SUMIFS. Now in this example, we want to have two criterias, and that is the department is fruits and the color is red, and it needs to return us 3. So this is the way the syntax works, equals SUMIFS. Okay, and now it's slightly different where you have to select where the quantity needs to be added up to, and then we add the ranges. So comma here, the criteria range 1, comma, and now once again quotation marks to fruits, quotation marks, comma. Now we highlight the second criteria, which is the color, once again the comma, and in quotation marks we type in red and close the bracket, and that should return us 3. There we go. Now the average is another useful function when you have grades, scores, or anything that you want to average out. So here we look at the quantity sold and what are the averages. So once again, equals average. Okay, highlight the range, close the bracket, and now it gives you the average. Another way to do this is by using the shortcut up here. So click on the arrow and go to average, and it detects all of the range here, and press OK. When it comes to count functions, it counts the number of lines within your data set. So for example, we want to have a look at the first example here, which is the price data, and we want to look at the number of different price points that we could have in this data range. So if we just press equals and count, open the bracket, okay, highlight the data, close the bracket, and this should return us 10. There you go. The count A is a function that you would use over text because the count doesn't work. So we are going to now type in count A, tab, open the bracket, highlight the data, close the bracket, and this should return us the number of different countries that are available in the data set. Now this is a simple count function where you will not have uniques and things like that, and that is something that is a bit more advanced in Excel. Now the COUNTIF and COUNTIFS work in a similar way to SUMIFS, but instead of summing up, it's just going to count. So as the name suggests, we need to now have a look at the yellow criteria of the items in this list. So the syntax is COUNTIF, tab, now you have the open bracket, highlight the range, and we just need to specify here what we're looking for. So if we're looking for yellow and it's a text, so we need to put it into quotation marks and close the bracket, and that should return us now 2. There we go. So the next thing that we'll look at is the COUNTIFs. And in this formula, we're going to look at if the fruit is red or, and that's how we do the syntax. So we do COUNTIFs, tab, we highlight the first range, and we now specify our criteria, which is fruits. So once again, text goes inside quotation marks. Now, comma, and we highlight the second range, comma. Now, once again, we put this into quotation mark and we close the bracket, and that should return us 1. So there you go. So we have one fruit and one red, and it takes the syntax and looks across 2 different ranges. Another useful function is the length function, or len. What that can help you to do is to determine the number of characters in a string, and this helps when you're, for example, uploading products or putting it into a certain field in different softwares where it requires a specific length and you can't go over that. So equals length, open the bracket, click onto the data in text, and this only works with text. So now it's telling us it has 15 characters here. That includes the spaces. So if you just double click, you'll see that everything here. So if you see whole milk, the actual characters are 9, but it includes 10 because of the space here. Okay, the MROUND function is another useful function where you want to determine the nearest factor. So what we're going to do is have a look at rounding up these prices to the nearest 10. So the formula is MROUND, tab to make the open bracket, highlight the number here, and the nearest multiple is 10. So we want to round it up to the nearest $10. So if you press OK, you have that, and if you just double click, you can send the formula across. Now you can use them for other factors, for example 100. So if you want it to be to the nearest 100, that could also be. So as you see, these are lower than 100. It's going to by default take it down to 0. Concatenate is another useful formula where you want to combine 2 or more strings together in one field. So the formula is concatenate. Now you can use concat, which is now the shorter formula version of it. So all you do is click on the text and we go comma and we click on the price, for example. Now just have a look at what happens here, and this provides us just a text without the $sign. Now if you want to add either a space or a $sign, you can do that simply. So we go back into here and we can add here a text. So once again, quotation marks, we can put a $sign here, close the marks, press OK, and there you go. You can easily add in different characters here. So just to show you, we could just type in $, and that would come up as $. Now, so we move on to VLOOKUP, which is one of the most popular advanced formulas that you should learn before you move on to anything further. So what does it mean? This is a VLOOKUP, a vertical lookup, where you need to take data from a secondary table and put it into, let's say, your primary data set. Now we want to look up the department in this table. Imagine this table is in a different tab or a different sheet, so you will have to be able to grab the data from here. So the syntax is equals VLOOKUP, and this is the data that we want to have a look at, comma, we go and highlight the range. Now the first item or first starting point is called 1, and the second one along is 2. So we put a comma, press 2, and now with the VLOOKUP you have the option of true or false, so an approximate match or an exact match. In this case, we want an exact match, which is 99% of the cases you would use a 0 at the end of your formula. And close the bracket, and now we have the department electronics. Now, if we drag the formula, what happens is, because of the way that it's arranged, we will get to a point where this doesn't apply. So we're going to have to just go across the formula and make sure that this formula is dragged and locked. So The way to do that is to make sure that you lock it on both levels. You can just use the shortcut F4. So we lock the cells there, and once we drag down, we'll have the formula. Now, one important thing about a VLOOKUP is you need to have the data on the left side of the table, and then it looks forward. It cannot look backwards. So if you were to have the item name looked up here and the department was on the left side, this formula as a VLOOKUP would not work for you. Now, the last one is a drop-down list. And while this is not a formula, it is a very useful function, especially when you have large data sets and you are actually populating your data. So imagine that we have the department here and we want to add the department to avoid things like duplicates, plurals, any data errors. We want to make sure that this field is locked and it's selectable. So how we do that is to add a data validation. So you highlight the cell or even the cells that you want the data validation to come to. So you go highlight, go across to data, then you come across to data tools and you have data validation. Click on that, data validation. Now here it says allow any value. So currently that's the option. What we need to do is go down to the list option here. And if there are a small number of options, you can simply type it in with a comma. For example, if you want to have a yes or a no, that can work. So if you don't need to have a bigger list, but if you have a bigger list, you can go onto the list, select that, press OK. And now we have a list where if we click onto this, we can add in, go to electronics, and white towels are household and bananas are fruits. There you have it. These are the top 10 most common formulas and functions that you're going to need for you to be able to do 80% of your work in Excel.
Thank you for watching the video today, and if you've learned something, please like and subscribe to this channel. Until next time, happy spreadsheeting.